Hello friends, in the last few lectures we have been attempting to expand the applicability of the thermodynamic variables and also functions. In the previous lecture we were able to distinguish how the thermodynamic functions vary from that of the thermodynamic variables. We were able to distinguish thermodynamic functions from that of the thermodynamic variable. Now the reasons why we are attempting to relax or we are attempting to generalize our understanding of thermodynamics is primarily because we want to ensure that any given system is able, or any system that is exhibiting a change or in its stable state is, we are able to rather describe the state of the system thermodynamically, be it dynamic state, be it static state. We should be in a position to describe the state of a system using thermodynamic variables and function. So that is the reason why we are relaxing all the assumptions we made while deriving the thermodynamic functions. If you could recollect, in order to describe a dynamic system, we introduced a thermodynamic variable called entropy. And based on how this entropy varies for a dynamic system, particularly when you observe a dynamic system, a system that is experiencing an irreversible change, how this entropy varies. Once we understood that, based on that we were able to develop or bring about two different functions, thermodynamic functions. These we refer to as the Helmholtz free energy and Gibbs free energy. Now the context in which these functions were brought about were rather restricted. For instance, while deriving the Helmholtz free energy, we assumed that the volume of the system is constant, and this was relaxed in order to arrive at the Gibbs free energy. Now despite this assumption and its relaxation, this local assumption and its relaxation, there were certain quantities these functions were associated with which was difficult for us to measure. For instance, measuring entropy is not that straightforward as compared to that of temperature, pressure and volume. However, in the previous lecture we saw that when we attempt to even further relax the constraint of each of these thermodynamic functions, so the context of each of these functions, if we attempt to generalize it, we arrive at a set of expressions that are largely dependent on, we redefine or we describe these thermodynamic variables in such a way that they are dependent on the accessible variables, the variables that can be rather easily measured in a physical system. So as a beginning for this lecture, as a starting point of this lecture, we will try to revisit these expressions that we derived in the previous lecture. We will just try to understand how these thermodynamic functions are represented now that we have generalized it. Now, the change in the Helmholtz free energy, or to begin with, the change in the Gibbs free energy, now is dependent on the pressure and temperature and is written as dP minus S dt. The same way, the change in the Helmholtz free energy is now dependent on, again, volume and temperature, which is expressed as S dt minus P dV. Now, the change in the Gibbs free energy and Helmholtz free energy are not dependent on entropy but rather change in the pressure and temperature. The same goes for the Helmholtz free energy, wherein it is dependent on volume and temperature. So we are able to describe a change in the state of the system wherein we observe there is a change in pressure and temperature, or change in volume and temperature based on thermodynamic functions that are conventionally used. Now in the previous lecture we saw that in all these derivations there are two additional expressions which involve enthalpy and internal energy. Even though we have been attempting to relax the context of each of these functions and extend its dependency or extend its applicability rather, we observe that there is one assumption that is implicit for all these expressions, and that assumption was, in order to derive all these equations, we assumed that the system is closed. We did not allow any mass to enter into the system. And when we relaxed that criteria, we observed that this expression, let us begin again with the Gibbs free energy. Now, instead of being dependent on pressure and temperature, if we assume we are considering an open system and it is dependent on mass transfer, and here again our assumption is we are considering just an elemental form, a homogeneous system, an elemental system, And since we are considering an elemental system, the mass transfer is dependent on the only one form of atom, that is either moving into or moving away from the system. So therefore we are just considering only one variable here. And now, given all these are a state function, the change in the Gibbs free energy can be expressed as the partial change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to pressure as the temperature and the mass exchange is constant, so there is no mass exchange that is occurring. And the same way, the partial change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to the temperature when the pressure is constant and there is no mass exchange. And finally, the change in the Gibbs free energy exclusively due to the mass exchange when the temperature and pressure are constant. So this is Tm and T. Now in this case, we saw in our previous lecture that since the mass transfer is nothing but, at least in this case, is nothing but the exchange of atom, a specific atom, a single form of atom rather. So it is nothing but, we can generally refer to it as chemical, and here we are translating an extensive variable to that of an intensive variable. So in this expression, what we are doing is changing an extensive variable that is dependent on the mass that is present to that of an intensive variable by taking its ratio. We are normalizing it and taking its ratio. So therefore, reasonably, this term here is referred to as the chemical potential. So the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to that of the mass exchange is referred to as the chemical free energy, and it is conventionally represented by term mu. Now the question arises, is this chemical free energy only dependent or is it associated exclusively with the Gibbs free energy, or it can be extended to the other Helmholtz and other thermodynamic function? Meaning, if we are considering, so again the reason we have to expand our understanding of the thermodynamic function, because we need to have a generalized understanding. So that the purpose of taking this course is, even though the whole of the thermodynamics is largely theoretical, we should be able to relate the theoretical understanding to that of the physical world, and that is the reason we are dwelling on this set of expression. We are spending some time on it. Now, when you see a system experiencing a change, and in that system, that change is rather characterized not by change in the pressure and temperature, but it is characterized by change in volume and temperature. So in that case, naturally, it would be possible for us to describe such change in the state of the system using Helmholtz free energy. Now supposing if such system is open, so in addition to the change in the volume and temperature, this system is open and it experiences mass exchange as well. Then in that case, what would be the corresponding derivative of the Helmholtz free energy with respect to that of the mass exchange? So if you consider an open system which is experiencing a change and it is characterized by change in volume, temperature, and it's an open system, therefore there is a mass exchange. Now when you expand this expression, we end up having this the partial change in the Helmholtz free energy with respect to volume, and here the mass exchange is assumed to be null and the temperature is constant, and the second term would be the change in the Helmholtz free energy when the temperature changes with respect to a temperature, and here we assume that the volume is constant and there is no mass exchange. And finally, what we end up having is a term that is similar to that of the Gibbs free energy or the chemical potential, that is similar. So we have the change in the Helmholtz free energy with respect to the mass exchange, assuming that the volume and temperature are constant. Now it is important for us to know that in both these cases, what we have is, we have an open system and there is a change in the thermodynamic function because of the mass exchange. Now when we want to describe the change in the thermodynamic function exclusively or because of this mass exchange, we are assuming that the other variables are constant. It is something that is critical for us to understand. While we are considering the change in the thermodynamic function with respect to that of the mass exchange, we are considering an open system and we are considering change in the thermodynamic variable with respect to that of the mass exchange. and we are attempting to quantify it and we are attempting to relate it to a specific variable, when we are relating it to a specific variable, we are assuming that all the other changes are constant. Here, when we want to attempt it or relate this expression to that of chemical potential, when we want to describe this expression as chemical potential, it is implicitly assumed that all the other thermodynamic change in the thermodynamic variables are constant. So only then we are able to describe this variable as a chemical potential. Supposing if this variable adopts the form something like this, the third order derivative of G, and there is, this will not be a chemical potential. This will rather be a mixed derivative, and we are not interested in it. This is not a chemical potential. The chemical potential is the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to the change or the mass transfer exclusively alone. So we are not considering a simultaneous change in the temperature, we are not considering a simultaneous change in the pressure. So when we are describing or when we are representing the chemical potential, we are implicitly assuming the change in the other variables are constant. Now, using that understanding, using that pivotal understanding, let us try to understand what would be this term here. What would be, how can we relate this term, or what would be our understanding of this term here, which is change in the Helmholtz free energy with respect to that of the mass transfer. So here we have termed the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to mass transfer as the chemical potential. Now we have an expression, we have a change, we are assuming a change in the state of the system, which is rather characterized by volume and temperature instead of pressure and temperature. So therefore we are considering the Helmholtz free energy here, and since we are considering an open Helmholtz or an open system, we are forced to introduce this particular term here. Now let us see what this term can be referred to as. Again, as a starting point for this discussion, let us consider these two terms or these two expressions, that is the Gibbs free energy that is dependent on the volume, and or rather the Gibbs free energy that is dependent on pressure and temperature. So this again, it is expressed as the expression can be rewritten as V dot dP minus S dot dt. And similarly, we have a change in the Helmholtz free energy dependent on volume and temperature, so P dV minus S dt. So I believe I have recaptured it accurately. Yes. So we have this expression here. Now there is two common terms associated with these two. So far we begin our discussion with the closed system. This is nothing on this expression we have arrived at in our previous lecture. So we now have two thermodynamic functions that are dependent on the accessible variables. Now we have this common term here, that is SdT and minus SdT. So therefore this, by substituting this can be brought out here, this term here can be brought here, and therefore minus SdT in terms of the Helmholtz free energy will be change in the Helmholtz free energy plus P dV. So we are bringing this P dV term here and we are expressing just this minus SdT term. And now what can be done is, now we can substitute this expression here in the Gibbs free energy. So ultimately we end up having this expression here, which is V dP, and again it is minus SdT. So we are substituting for this whole minus SdT, therefore dA, that is change in the Helmholtz free energy, P dV. So take a moment to think about it. It's not that complicated. It's just we are doing some considering that they both have this minus SdT as common. So we are trying to arrive at a single expression where we are attempting to relate Gibbs free energy and the Helmholtz free energy. Now let us go back to our critical factor that enables us to relate or to derive the chemical potential. The critical factor that enables us to describe the chemical potential is all the other change in all the other variables are constant. Now when you, that critical factor, that criteria, that is we are able to describe the chemical potential only when all the other variables are constant. So the chemical potential can be described only when all other variables are constant Now when we make that assumption, then what we end up having is, so when we impose this assumption on this expression here, all the other variables are constant. So this is variable. So all the other variables are constant. When we make that assumption, when we impose that assumption in this expression, this term vanishes off because there should not be any change in the pressure. This term vanishes off. So ultimately what we end up having is, we end up having dg pt equal to that of dg vt. So we arrive at a similarity when you assume that all the other variables are constant and only the mass transfer occurs. In that instance, when we want to describe, when we want to create a setup wherein all the other variables are constant, then the change in the Gibbs free energy is equal to that of the change in the Helmholtz free energy. When you impose a condition that all the other variables are constant, then we arrive at a setup wherein the change in the Gibbs free energy is equal to that of the change in the Helmholtz free energy. Now let us go back to this expression here. So what we essentially have is, these two terms are equivalent. So when you assume there is no change in any variable and we assume just an open system, then these two are equivalent. That is, the change in the Gibbs free energy of the open system is equivalent to the change in the Helmholtz free energy of the open system when all the other variables are, when change in the all the other variables are constant. And in that case, then what we essentially end up having is, when you compare, when these two are equivalent and these terms becomes null and void, when these terms becomes null and void, all the other terms become null and void, then when we relate this two terms here, that is the term that is associated with the mass transfer in the Gibbs free energy and the term that is associated with the mass transfer in the Helmholtz free energy. So the term that is associated with the mass transfer in the Gibbs free energy is dou g. This is the term that is associated with mass transfer in the Gibbs free energy, and this is the term that is associated with mass transfer in Helmholtz free energy. So this term here we refer to it as the chemical potential, and this chemical potential, so this term here, this partial derivative, we refer to as the chemical potential, and given these two equivalency, this chemical potential is also equivalent to the change in the Helmholtz free energy with the mass exchange. So chemical potential is not only the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to that of the mass transfer, but chemical potential is also the change in the Helmholtz free energy with respect to that of the mass transfer. So what we have done is, if you just want to have a quick recap of how we derived at this expression. So what essentially we have done is, we have initially identified a condition that enables us to describe the chemical potential for Gibbs free energy. So that condition is mentioned here. So we identified that condition. Then we arrived at an expression that enables us to relate the Gibbs free energy to that of the Helmholtz free energy. And once we were able to relate Gibbs free energy to that of the Helmholtz free energy, we imposed this condition here. And once we imposed this condition, we saw that when we assume that all the other variables do not change, and it is just the open system when we are considering, so it is just the open system that are varying and all the other variables do not change, in that case the Gibbs free energy is equal to that of the Helmholtz free energy. The Gibbs free energy and the Helmholtz free energy are equivalent. And when we arrive at this equivalence and then compare the expression for the Gibbs free energy and Helmholtz free energy for open system, we were able to observe that the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to mass transfer is equal to the change in the Helmholtz free energy with respect to mass transfer. So since change in the Gibbs free energy is the chemical potential, it is nothing but the change in the Helmholtz free energy with respect to the mass transfer. So this operation can be extended, or this derivation can be extended to other thermodynamic functions, that is internal energy and also the enthalpy. So when you extend this form of, so this is U, internal energy and enthalpy. So if you extend the derivation that we saw in the previous slide to these two thermodynamic variables, then we end up observing that the chemical potential is not only the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to mass transfer, it is also the change in the Helmholtz, or rather Helmholtz free energy with respect to mass transfer, change in the internal energy with respect to mass transfer, and also change in the enthalpy with respect to mass transfer. So this generalized expression of chemical potential is quite vital to us. Even though often, canonically, the chemical potential is assumed to be the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to mass transfer, using the condition that enables us to describe the chemical potential, we will be able to show that, or we have shown that, the chemical potential is not only the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to mass transfer, but it is also a change in the Helmholtz free energy, enthalpy and internal energy separately with respect to the mass transfer. Now, so what we have achieved is, what we have so far done is, we have now enabled us, or we are now able to describe chemical potential for any system. Now that these thermodynamic functions, because of their dependencies on specific variables, can be used to describe change in the any state of the system, and the chemical potential allows us to do, or allows us to thermodynamically describe a change in the state of the open system, what we have essentially done is, we are in principle able to describe change in the any state of the system, be it closed, open, or any form of the change in the variable it exhibits. However, again, there is also an implicit assumption here, that is, we have been restricting ourselves to a transfer of a specific form of atoms. We have assumed that the mass exchange is not how we observe in the natural system. So when you consider an open system in our environment, the environment that surrounds us, we do not have only one form of atom or one form of molecule. We have oxygen molecules, hydrogen molecules, so on and so forth. So we do not have just oxygen molecule alone. Supposing we are considering a system within a closed system, a system within a closed setup, and in this closed setup there are only oxygen molecule present, then in that case this particular description of chemical potential will be valid, because when you consider a larger system that comprises only of oxygen molecules, and within that you consider an open system wherein with across this open system there is this exchange of O2 possible, then only for such a case this description of chemical potential is valid. Now how about a case wherein the system, the open system, is present in, say, our environment, the environment that surrounds us, wherein we have oxygen molecules, hydrogen molecules, and so on and so forth. So how about such a case? How can we just generalize the description of the chemical potential, or description of the change in the thermodynamic function with respect to such a open system? The open system wherein we have numerous forms of atoms that are getting across the boundaries. So for that we need to extend our consideration or description of the Helmholtz free energy. So the Helmholtz free energy, originally it is dependent on, if you could recollect, it is expressed as, it is dependent on the pressure and temperature. Now it is an open system, so therefore we have several several atoms that can move in and out of it. So we have several forms of atoms that can move in and out of the system. We have an open system, and in that open system it is possible for the system to allow several forms of the atoms to move in and out. So it can be oxygen atoms, it can be hydrogen atoms, nitrogen atoms, so on and so forth. So therefore we need to extend the dependency of the Gibbs free energy with respect to each of these atoms, meaning the way the Gibbs free energy changes with respect to the movement or the transfer of oxygen atom is not similar to the way Gibbs free energy changes with the transfer of hydrogen atoms, or it is not similar to the change in the Gibbs free energy due to the transfer of nitrogen atom. So therefore the change in the Gibbs free energy is unique for what kind of atom is transferring, what kind of chemical is transferring across the boundary of the open system. So the change in the Gibbs free energy, it is something that is critical for you to understand. It is with respect to the mass transfer of one form of atom is not equal to often the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to the transfer of another form of atom. So therefore these become an independent variables. We cannot club all these mass exchange into or represent all these mass exchange in using a single variable, but we need to have separate variables to represent the separate chemical that traverse across the boundaries, that come and in and out, that move in and out of the system. So in order to do that, in order to ensure that we account for these individual atoms that move in and out, we consider this as the independent variables. So therefore, if you have a system wherein the oxygen atoms are moving, hydrogen atoms are moving, nitrogen atoms are moving, so you have three different atoms are moving. So therefore it is dependent on N1, say 1 equivalent to the oxygen, 2 and equivalent to that of hydrogen molecules, 3 equivalent to that of nitrogen molecules. So again, this equivalency, in order to ensure that it is easy for us to represent it here, or if you want, we could also represent it as N0, that is the number of moles of oxygen atom that is transversing or that is moving across the boundaries, the number of moles of hydrogen, the number of moles of nitrogen. So we are considering a system where oxygen, hydrogen and nitrogen are allowed to move across the domain or allowed to move across the boundary. Now when you consider such a system, then the change in the Gibbs free energy of such a system will be expressed in this manner, where we account for change in or mass exchange of the individual component separately, oxygen separately, hydrogen separately and nitrogen separately. Now when you do that, what we end up having is, we end up having the similar description because all these are rather state variables, none of these are path variables, we can express this overall change in the Gibbs free energy as the sum of partial derivatives that we have considered so far. Again, so this is something that we have considered in the previous slide as well. Now we need to consider the change in the Gibbs free energy for the exchange of individual components. So individual atoms or individual form of atoms. So therefore change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to the exchange of oxygen atoms and change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to the exchange of hydrogen atoms, plus change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to the exchange of nitrogen atoms. So we have considered all these separately. Now what critical factor we are missing or we are overlooking is that when we consider these partial derivative of the Gibbs free energy, change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to a specific variable, all the other variables, that is T, N0, NH and NN, they are assumed to be constant. So here the pressure and the mass exchange across the exchange of oxygen, hydrogen and nitrogen are assumed to be null when we are for this particular partial derivative here, and the same goes for here and here as well, meaning, so let me write at least one of this clearly. So in this case we assume that the change in the temperature and the pressure is constant, so there is no change in the temperature, there is no change in the pressure, and in addition to that there is no exchange of the hydrogen atom and there is no exchange of the nitrogen atom. So here in this case we assume that the rest of the mass exchange are constant. So that is how we impose, or that is how we describe these partial derivatives here. Now this here is nothing but change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to the exchange of oxygen atom. This here change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to that of the hydrogen, and this here is the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to that of nitrogen exchange. So this here is referred to as the chemical potential of oxygen. So this term here is referred to as the chemical potential of oxygen. This term here is referred to as the chemical potential of hydrogen, and this term here is referred to as the chemical potential of nitrogen. And again, these three are distinct and they are based on the mass transfer of their specific atom. So when you have a mass exchange that is not homogeneous, that is not comprising, this mass exchange does not comprise of a single form of atoms, a single component, that in that case our change in the Gibbs free energy must be described based on these individual components. And therefore, when you consider these individual components, we have to we arrive at individual chemical potential. So chemical potential of oxygen is different from the chemical potential of hydrogen, and it's different from the chemical potential of nitrogen. So this is something we need to understand now that we are narrowing our focus down to relating the thermodynamic theory of the thermodynamics to that of the changes that we observe in a metals or a material. So since we are attempting to relate the generalized thermodynamic understanding to that of the material systems, we need to understand that materials, they are made of elements, or they are made up of different atoms. And when we want to study, so there is an exchange of different atoms in a given material, then in that case we want to describe the change in the thermodynamic function with respect to the exchange of these individual components, then we need to ensure that we treat the individual components separately. Even though these exchange happen cumulatively, collectively these exchange happens, that does not allow us to treat the change in the Gibbs free energy cumulatively. We need to treat the change in the Gibbs free energy or any function separately for the chemical potential associated with a given component is unique to that component, and it is rather independent of the other component. Of course, down the lane we will see there is possibility of relating the chemical potential, but as it stands in the present condition or in the given context, the chemical potential of a given component, which is nothing but the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to the mass transfer of a given component, needs to be treated separately. Now in that case, the generalized expression for the change in the Gibbs free energy or any thermodynamic function, so we will start with the change in the Gibbs free energy, and it can be extended to any thermodynamic function. So it is dependent on the temperature, the pressure, and the different masses that exchange or that get exchanged during the change in the state of the system or during the dynamic state of the system. So this is how, or these are the independent variables that dictate the overall change in the Gibbs free energy. For an open system wherein there are I components that get exchanged, and because of this there is a change in the state of the system, the change in the Gibbs free energy that quantifies this change in the state of the system is expressed in this manner, wherein in addition to the temperature and pressure, we have the influence of the individual components on the change in the Gibbs free energy. Now if you extend this expression, we have the partial derivative with respect to temperature, of course the constant terms, we have the partial derivative with respect to pressure, of course the constant term, and we have for each and every individual component, the exchange of each and every individual component, we have a corresponding change in the Gibbs free energy. So this is for component 1 and this is for component 2, and so on and so forth till the exchange of the final component, that is I. Again, we should never forget this is under the assumption of the other variables are constant. Now this here in a generalized manner can be represented as, so what essentially we are trying to do is we are trying to represent the change in the Gibbs free energy for an open system with I number of component exchanging across its boundaries. So therefore the generalized expression for such a change in the Gibbs free energy would be, so we can introduce the summation term here, I, it moves from 1 to say j, so wherein we will treat, or instead of considering there are I independent components that are moving across the boundaries, let us assume that there are j independent components, so that the summation term is more meaningful, and we have this generalized form of representing the change that is introduced, the change in the Gibbs free energy that is introduced by the mass transfer. And since this term is nothing but the chemical potential of I, so in addition to this term, the term that exclusively considers, so in addition to all these terms, so these terms will remain unchanged, So the term that considers exclusively the change in the Gibbs free energy because of the change or the exchange of the J components, J chemical species, J chemicals can be represented in this way, wherein we are considering the summation of all the chemical potential. So what we essentially now have done is we have now considered, so we are in a position now to be able to describe the change in the Gibbs free energy of the system when the system experiences a change in temperature, a change in pressure, and also this system is an open system, and this system allows for J number of particles or J number of chemical species, J forms of atoms, so different forms of atoms to move across its boundaries. So for such a system, for such rather an exhaustive system, so it is open, the temperature changes, the pressure changes. For such a system, now we are able to describe its change in state by considering the Gibbs free energy. Now if we know that the chemical potential of the individual atoms and change in the temperature and change in the pressure, we would be able to describe the change in the state of the system. So we began with this considering, so we have so far gained two critical understanding of the chemical potential. One is that the chemical potential, even though we derived the expression for chemical potential by relating it to or by beginning with the Gibbs free energy, we saw that the chemical potential is equivalent to the change in the Helmholtz free energy with respect to that of the mass transfer. So since we now have considered or made distinction between one form of chemical to another form of chemical, one form of component to another form of component, so the generalized equivalency looks like this, that is the chemical potential, which is nothing but the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to the mass transfer of that particular component. So the chemical potential is not a general one, the chemical potential is specific to a given component, and that is equal to the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to the exchange of that particular component. It is also equal to that of the change in the Helmholtz free energy with respect to the exchange of the same component, and it is also equal to the change in the enthalpy with respect to the exchange of the same component, change in the internal energy with respect to the exchange of the same component. So the generalized equivalency assumes or forms something like this. So this generalized equivalency assumes a form of something like this, wherein even though the change in the chemical potential or the chemical potential for a given component is discussed or described as the change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to the mass transfer of that component, because of the equivalency which we have arrived earlier, this can be extended to the Helmholtz free energy, enthalpy, and also internal energy. Now if we consider a system of k components, so there is a system of k components. So when I say components, so in this context it can be treated as k different elements. So if you assume a system considering of oxygen, nitrogen and nitrogen, so here we have three different components, so the k here will be equal to 3. So this is in this context, let us consider a simple gaseous system. So you have three different components, and we are allowing these three different components to move in and out of the system. Now when we want to describe the change in the Gibbs free energy, so the change in the Gibbs free energy of such a system, again apart from this its conventional independent variables of pressure and temperature, now depends on the mass exchange of oxygen, nitrogen and hydrogen. Now here when we represent the change in the Gibbs free energy, here we need to consider the independent variables alone. We need to express the independent variables alone. Now what we have here is we have oxygen, nitrogen and hydrogen. Now if it is possible for us to express these terms using a unique variable, if it is possible for us to express the mass exchange of these individual components using a unique variable in such a way that the mass exchange of the third one is dependent on the other two. So supposing we are able to express the mass exchange of these three components using mole fraction. So the mole fraction is nothing but the number of moles of one component and the ratio of number of moles of one component and the number of sum of all the moles that are present. So this would be the expression for the mole fraction. So this is something that you might have learned earlier. So when you represent the mass exchange in terms of the mole fraction, which is nothing but the number of moles of one variable, the ratio of number of moles of one variable, and the overall, the total number of moles of particles that are present, the total number of moles of atoms that are present. So that will give you the mole fraction. And one rather advantage of considering or representing the mass exchange in terms of mole fraction is that the mole fraction of oxygen, the mole fraction of nitrogen, and the mole fraction of hydrogen is equal to 1. So if you consider a mass exchange within a system, and this mass exchange within a system and this mass exchange is expressed in terms of mole fraction, the sum of all these mole fraction is equal to 1. Now that means the exchange of one of this variable is dependent on the other two variable. So the exchange of the hydrogen, from this expression we can write the exchange of hydrogen is 1 minus the exchange of oxygen and the nitrogen. So the exchange of hydrogen is dependent on oxygen and nitrogen. So this means the number of independent variables, even though there are k components, since one of the k components is dependent on, so it is possible for us to express the mass exchange in such a way that the mass exchange of one of the components is dependent on all the rest. Then, so therefore in such a case the number of independent concentration that we need to consider will be k minus 1. So this is something that we need to understand, that is, when we are representing the change in the Gibbs free energy, we are talking in terms of the independent variable. So in that independent variable, supposing we have k components, we have exchange of k components, for specific cases, again for specific cases, by appropriately representing the mass exchange, by appropriately quantifying this mass exchange, it is possible for us to reduce the number of independent variables. So instead of having say 1, 2 and so on and k for specific system, by appropriately expressing the mass exchange, we will be able to express the change in the Gibbs free energy by reducing one of the independent variables. So k minus 1 is what we have to consider. We can ignore the mass exchange of k because by appropriate expression for a given specific system, we will be able to show that the exchange of one of the component is dependent on the exchange of the others. So what we have so far seen is, just to recapitulate everything that we have seen in this lecture, we have seen that the chemical potential, it is dependent on a specific component, and this chemical potential will vary from component to component within a system. And the chemical potential is not alone, even though we can describe it as, or we began by describing it as change in the Gibbs free energy with respect to the exchange of a given component, it can be extended to Helmholtz, enthalpy and the internal energy. And we also saw that this Gibbs free energy can be extended to just not one component but for any number of component, and or rather this chemical potential, it has been shown that it cannot be, we need to have individual chemical potential for the individual component, so we cannot club all the components and describe one rather complex chemical potential. And finally, now we have seen that when you consider, or for a specific system, it is possible for us to appropriately quantify the mass exchange, to appropriately express the mass exchange in such a way that we are able to reduce the number of independent variables. Now here, in this case, when we consider all the components that are exchanged, in addition to our conventional variables, there were k plus 2 variables, and here we just have k plus 1 variable. So by appropriately quantifying the mass exchange, for specific system, it is possible for us to reduce the number of independent variables. So with this, we will wind this lecture up, and we will attempt to build on this understanding in the subsequent lecture. From subsequent lecture onwards, the focus will be largely on the material system and the concepts that are associated with the materials. Goodbye.